April 1945. World War II is nearing its endgame. The Western Allied forces are locked in a brutal fight against Nazi Germany. Hitler's empire is collapsing as American-led troops push deep into the heart of the country. Still, the remaining Nazi forces refuse to surrender. They fight until their very last breath, turning Germany into a land of burning ruins. Amidst the destruction, a German commander rides across the battlefield on horseback. Suddenly, an American soldier jumps out from a stationary tank and kills him instantly. This soldier is Don Collier, a battle-hardened tank commander. He leads a deadly U.S. Army tank known as Fury. After taking down the enemy, Don climbs back inside the tank, joining his crew. Inside, the mood is heavy. The team is still shaken after losing one of their own in battle. This five-man crew operates like a family. Each member has a nickname. Don is known as Wardaddy, a name that reflects his ruthless reputation on the battlefield. With him are Boyd, nicknamed Bible for his strong faith, along with Grady and Gordo. Their fifth member, Red, was recently killed by the Germans. Red's death has left a deep scar on the team. Tension fills a cramped tank, and arguments quickly break out. But before things escalate, shells start exploding around them. Don immediately shuts everyone down and brings them back to reality. With Nazi planes flying overhead and bombs dropping nearby, they move the tank out of danger, heading toward an army camp for repairs. Upon arriving at a nearby camp, their first grim task is to remove Red's remains from the tank. Don then orders Boyd to handle the necessary repairs, as they are scheduled to deploy for another mission in northern Germany shortly. While Don takes a brief moment to rest, a young soldier approaches and introduces himself. The recruit's name is Norman, and he informs Don that he has been assigned as Fury's new assistant driver, the replacement for Red. Looking at him, Don is instantly skeptical. Norman is incredibly young, and his eyes reflect raw terror rather than the hardened courage of a soldier. Infuriated by the command's decision, Don demands to know how long he's been in the service. Norman's response only makes matters worse. 3 weeks. Don is floored, and the situation turns absurd when Norman admits he has never even set foot inside a tank. He explains that he was trained as a typist and was forced into combat duty against his will. To Don, bringing a boy like this along is a death sentence for the entire crew, but orders are orders. He has no choice but to accept Norman into the fold. When Norman tries to introduce himself to the rest of the crew, they greet him with mockery and cold cynicism. The reality of war hits Norman with visceral force when he is sent to clean the interior of the tank. The sight of the blood and remains left behind by his predecessor is too much to bear, and he stumbles out, instantly vomiting. Meanwhile, as American soldiers bring in a German prisoner, Don's rage boils over. Since Red's death, his hatred for the enemy has become a consuming fire, and it takes several men to restrain him from attacking the captive. Don then turns his attention back to Norman, cold and direct. He tells the boy that he must kill the enemy on sight. When Norman trembles and confesses that he has never even fired a weapon, Don forces a rifle into his hands. Under Don's orders, Grady begins a grim process of teaching the typist how to kill. After a brief respite, the platoon captain arrives to brief Don and the other sergeants on their next objective. The journey resumes as the tanks roar back onto the battlefield. Their mission is to rendezvous with Baker Company of the U.S. Army and launch an assault on a German town. A column of tanks advances toward the company's camp, with Fury positioned right behind the lead tank. Inside, Norman is assigned a station and given a lethal directive: open fire on any German soldier he spots, without hesitation. As they move, the open fields give way to dense thickets and heavy tree liens. Don warns the crew that the brush could be crawling with Nazi ambushes. Moments later, through the foliage, Norman spots 2 young German soldiers, hardly more than children. Paralyzed by their age, he fails to pull the trigger. The price of his hesitation is immediate and devastating. An anti-tank explosive launched from the brush strikes the lead tank, turning it into an inferno. Norman watches in horror as a soldier emerges from the hatch, engulfed in flames, only put a bullet in his own head to end the agony. It's a sight that chills Norman to the bone. While Don and the rest of the crew neutralize the German ambush with a hail of gunfire, Don realizes Norman had a clear shot. He confronts the boy, demanding to know why he didn't fire. When Norman stammers that they were just kids, Don strikes him, driving home a brutal reality. Look at what those kids just did. He makes it clear. From now on, if it's German, Norman's finger must pull that trigger, regardless of age. Overwhelmed, Norman struggles to process a transition from someone who wouldn't hurt a fly to a killer of men. With the lead tank destroyed, Don assumes command of the entire column, barking orders into the radio as he leads the platoon deeper into the jaws of war. Upon reaching Baker Company, Don and the other tank commanders meet with the captain for a tactical briefing. The captain reports that German forces have dug in at the town's entrance with heavy machine guns and anti-tank weaponry. To minimize infantry casualties, the tanks must lead the charge, providing a steel shield for the soldiers as they advance. Following the captain's orders, Don moves his column forward, with the infantry hugging the rear of the tanks for cover. Just as anticipated, the Germans are waiting. The moment the tanks roll into view, the trillion erupts with heavy machine gun fire. Under Don's command, Boyd zeroes in on the muzzle flashes and unleashes a devastating counter-barrage. The other tanks join in, their heavy cannons turning the German fortifications into a graveyard of dirt and debris within seconds. The battle intensifies as German infantry crawl through the mud, desperately trying to flank the tanks. American soldiers return fire from behind the armor, while the tank crews spray the area with machine guns. Amidst the chaos, Norman is paralyzed, his mind unable to process the carnage around him. When his ammunition runs dry, he fumbles through a reload, nearly leaving himself exposed until Gordo steps in to neutralize the immediate threat. Gordo shouts at Norman to fire into the piles of fallen German bodies, warning him that in this war, a dead soldier can still pull a pin on a grenade if they aren't finished off. But Norman breaks down, screaming that he can't take it anymore. Don instantly shuts him down with a roar, forcing him back into fight. Utilizing his sharp combat instincts, Don locates the remaining hidden machine gun nest and coordinates a synchronized strike. All 4 tanks fire simultaneously, obliterating the enemy's heavy weaponry in a massive explosion, with their defenses shattered. The remaining Nazi forces are systematically cut down. The American soldiers eventually wipe out the enemy forces. Inside the tank, Norman sits motionless, watching the aftermath in a daze. After the fight, Don tells him that the man who previously occupied his seat was the finest soldier in the platoon. Norman fires back, saying he was only trained to type 60 words a minute and had never even seen a tank before, though he is trying his best. Once the dust settles, the American soldiers bring in a German prisoner, intending to torture and kill him in front of everyone. Don intervenes, but only to pull Norman out of the tank. He hands Norman a pistol and orders him to execute the prisoner, believing this first kill is the only way for the boy to find the courage to survive the war. Norman refuses, his heart melting as a German soldier weeps and shows him photos of his wife and children. But Don is cold. Kill him or I'll kill you. The choice is yours. Distraught, Norman tells Don to just shoot him instead, as he cannot bring himself to murder another human being. Realizing words won't work, Don decides enough is enough. He physically overpowers Norman, pinning him down and forcing the gun into his hand. Don then forces Norman's finger to pull the trigger, executing the man. The act leaves Norman completely shattered and traumatized. Seeing his state, Gordo and the others explain that it is precisely because of Don's madness that they've been so successful. No one else has managed to keep their crew alive for this long. They tell Norman that Don isn't just about cruelty. He truly cares for his men at the right moments. Proving them right, Don later approaches Norman and tells him to eat, having noticed that the boy hasn't touched a single thing all day. Hey! Before the story gets crazier, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown. Now, let's continue. Next, the column moves into the heart of the city. As they advance, they pass several corpses hanging in the streets. Signs pinned to their chests reveal they were executed by the SS for refusing to fight for Germany, branded as cowards for choosing peace over Hitler's war. Upon entering the urban center, they are immediately targeted by a hidden sniper. Don quickly pinpoints the shooter's location and obliterates the position with return fire. When machine gun fire erupts from nearby buildings, the crew systematically neutralizes the threats. In the heat of the battle, something changes within Norman. A new strength takes hold. He begins firing on the German soldiers himself, sending several to their graves. His newfound lethal precision even earns him a nod of approval from Don. The city is captured with surprising speed. The remaining German forces emerge with white flags to surrender. It becomes clear how desperate the Nazi regime had become, as many of those surrendering are just children. Among them, they spot an SS commander. Don points him out as the true culprit, the one who sent children to die while hiding behind them. Before Don can say more, another soldier steps forward and executes the commander on the spot. With the city secured, the soldiers begin to occupy the buildings. Don and Norman enter one house only to find several German officers who committed suicide overnight. Knowing the Americans were coming, they chose to die by their own hands rather than face their enemies. Continuing their search, Don spots a woman in another building. He and Norman enter and find a second, younger girl hiding. Both women are paralyzed with fear, expecting the worst from the American liberators. To their surprise, Don remains calm. He pulls out a carton of eggs from his supplies and asks them to prepare a meal. While the food is being cooked, Norman notices a piano and begins to play. The younger girl, Emma, is clearly moved by the music and begins to sing along to the melody. Observing the connection between them, Don jokingly tells Norman that if he hadn't impressed her first, he might have tried to win her over himself. He gives him a subtle nod, allowing Norman and Emma to go into another room to share a private moment together. Sometime later, Norman emerges and joins Don at the dining table. There's a visible change in Norman and Emma. The tension of war momentarily replaced by a soft, glowing spark of human connection. Emma and her cousin begin preparing breakfast, but just as the meal is served, the rest of the crew, Boyd, Grady, and Gordo, burst through the door. Grady, the most abrasive of the group, immediately begins bullying Norman after seeing him with Emma. The atmosphere turns tense as the crew, hardened and cynical from the war, eyes the women with predatory intent. However, Don draws a hard line, making it clear that no one is to lay a finger on them. This causes a rift, as the men feel Don is siding with a newcomer like Norman over his longtime brothers-in-arms. Despite the warning, Grady continues to taunt Emma. As they eat, Gordo recounts a disturbing story from their time in France involving the mass slaughter of hundreds of horses. Don, already weary of their behavior, grows increasingly irritated by Grady's crude jokes. Seeing Don's rising anger, the crew finally falls silent. Just then, Don receives word of a new mission and heads to the colonel for a briefing. Meanwhile, Norman tries to get Emma's address to stay in touch, but Gordo forcibly drags him away. The mission is urgent. A squad of Allied soldiers is pinned down nearby, unable to advance due to the threat of German tanks. Don's crew is ordered to provide protection. As the men head back to Fury, a German plane suddenly screeches overhead, dropping a massive payload. Norman and the soldiers dive under the tanks for cover as the world explodes around them. When the dust finally settles and the plane disappears, Norman crawls out and looks toward the building they just left. His heart shatters. The house is a heap of smoldering rubble, and lying among the debris is the lifeless body of Emma. In their brief time together, he had formed a genuine bond, and seeing her snatched away so cruelly leaves him devastated. Grady, seeing his grief, roughly pulls him away, forcing him back to reality. Resigned to the merciless nature of war, Norman returns to the tank as they set off once again into the unknown. Don breaks the silence, reflecting on their journey, how they fought the Germans in Africa, then France, and are now finally finishing it in Germany itself. He tells Norman that while the war might end soon, many more will have to die before the final curtain falls. As they advance, the silence is shattered by a devastating blast. Out of nowhere, a high-velocity shell obliterates one of their 4 tanks. Don immediately orders the remaining 3 to pivot, realizing they are facing the legendary German Tiger I. During World War II, this tank was the stuff of nightmares for Allied forces. Its thick armor was nearly impenetrable, making a rolling fortress that shrugged off direct hits. But Don isn't one to back down. He orders a tactical retreat to regroup, then commands a full-throttle charge, firing continuously. The Tiger proves its lethality, picking off 2 more American tanks in rapid succession. Soon, Fury is the only one left standing. Using his superior combat IQ, Don maneuvers Fury into a flanking position, racing to get behind the German beast. Though the Tiger managed to land hit on Fury, the tank's advanced build holds steady. Once Don finds a perfect opening, he orders 2 point-blank shots into the Tiger's rear, finally turning the Iron Giant into a burning wreck. As 2 German crew members scramble out of the burning hatch, Don guns them down. Norman, now hardened by the fight, finishes off the tank commander from inside. They have managed to take down the most dangerous tank of the era, but the cost was high. Their unit has been decimated. Don tries to radio for reinforcements, only to realize their communication system is dead. They are now on their own. Don decides to push forward and complete the mission with just Fury, despite the crew's protest that a single tank can't do the work of 4. As they navigate toward a ridge, disaster strikes again. Fury runs over a hidden landmine. The explosion snaps the drive chain and mangles the wheels, grinding the tank to a halt. Don realizes they're stranded in a desolate valley, with no way to move and no way to call for help. He decides they will hold their ground until an American division passes through. Don sends Norman to a nearby tree line to act as a lookout. After a while, a low, rhythmic chanting reaches Norman's ears. He looks toward the horizon, and his heart sinks. Marching straight toward their crippled tank is a massive battalion of nearly 300 SS soldiers. Terror-stricken, Norman sprints back to the tank to deliver the grim news to Don. Hearing Norman's description, Don realizes they are facing one of Germany's most lethal SS battalions. Panicked by the overwhelming odds, Grady, Gordo, and Boyd immediately start packing their gear to retreat. But Don stands his ground, declaring that he has never run from a fight, and he won't start now. This tank is his home. He climbs atop the steel beast, resolute. The crew is stunned. They ask how he expects to stop an entire SS battalion with a broken tank. Don simply tells them to leave if they want, but he is staying. Unexpectedly, Norman steps forward and chooses to stand with Don. Seeing the kid's courage, the rest of the veterans decide to stay as well. It is a suicide mission. 5 men and a crippled tank against 300 soldiers, but they embrace the grim glory of a final stand for their country. They devise a desperate plan, dragging nearby corpses around a tank and lighting fires. They create the illusion that Fury is already a burnout wreck. Inside, the crew huddles in the shadows, fully loading every weapon and preparing every crate of ammunition. They wait in total silence as the sun begins to set. As evening falls, the SS battalion arrives. Seeing the smoke and fire, they send scouts to investigate the destroyed tank. The moment a German soldier climbs up and opens the hatch, Don and his crew spring the trap. They take him out instantly, slam the hatch shut, and unleash hell. The tank erupts in a storm of gunfire. Fury's machine guns and main cannon tear to the German ranks, mowing them down by the dozens. When the Nazis try to take cover in nearby structures, Don orders the crew to blow the buildings apart. The field soon becomes a graveyard of SS soldiers. As their ammunition begins to run low, the intensity of the fight forces them to adapt. Under Don's orders, they deploy smoke grenades to mask their movements. Amidst the fog, Boyd bravely scrambles out to retrieve more ammo belts from the exterior bins, while Don and Norman provide suppressive fire. The Germans manage to swarm the tank, and the battle turns into a frantic struggle at close quarters. Don continues to rain fire from the turret until his rifle finally clicks empty. A German soldier manages to leap onto the tank, leading to a brutal hand-to-hand struggle. In a display of raw desperation, Don overpowers him, dragging him halfway into the hatch and plunging a knife into his throat, ending him right there. The hand-to-hand struggle leaves Don wounded, but they manage to seal the hatch just in time. Boyd quickly bandages his commander's wounds as the crew reloads, unleashing another wave of fire upon the relentless SS battalion. However, the sheer numbers of the enemy begin to take their toll. The Germans start hurling explosives at Fury, causing a massive blast that mortally wounds Grady. Within moments, Grady takes his last breath, and the crew's ammunition finally hits rock bottom. Refusing to give up, Don pivots to hand grenades to keep the enemy at bay. The Germans, realizing the tank is nearly empty, change their tactics, crawling through the mud from all directions to surround them, with the main gun silent. The crew is forced to grab rifles and lean out of hatches to pick off the soldiers. In the chaos, Boyd narrowly escapes death only for Norman to save him and pull him back inside. Gordo, fighting from within, manages to thin the herd with few well-placed grenades. But the Nazis have one final card to play, a sniper. As Boyd tries to hand on a rifle, a sniper's bullet finds his mark, killing Boyd instantly. Gordo, while attempting to toss a grenade, is also shot. In a final heroic act, Gordo realizes the live grenade has fallen back into the tank. To save Don and Norman, he pulls the explosive to his chest, sacrificing himself in a muffled blast. Now, only Don and Norman remain. They are trapped, wounded, and completely out of ammo. Still, Don refuses to surrender, rising from the hatch one last time to fight. But the sniper is waiting. 3 precise shots tear through Don's body, finally forcing him back down into the tank. Fading fast, Don looks at Norman and whispers a sincere apology. He blames himself for leading the crew into this death trap. But Norman, now a true soldier, comforts him, saying that this is a nature war and that, in their own way, they have already won. Terrified and exhausted, Norman admits he wants to surrender. Don warns him that the SS doesn't take prisoners. They only torture, and that death will be a mercy compared to what they would do. Yet, Don cannot bring himself to watch the boy die. With his final ounce of strength, he tells Norman about an escape hatch beneath the tank and urges him to crawl out and hide. By now, the German soldiers have completely surrounded the tank. When one tries to force open a hatch, Don uses his final moments to take him out with his revolver. In response, 2 German soldiers toss grenades inside and slam the hatch shut. With seconds to live, Norman has no choice but to scramble through the emergency exit. As soon as he hits the mud beneath the tank, the grenades detonate, and the brave commander is gone. Norman lies frozen under the steel belly of the tank, paralyzed by what he's witnessed. The SS soldiers scour the area, searching for survivors. Suddenly, a young German soldier leans down and shines a flashlight directly onto Norman. Their eyes meet. 2 young men of the same age caught in a war neither started. In a surprising moment of mercy, the soldier says nothing and walks away, sparing Norman's life. Norman spends the rest of the night hiding in that graveyard of iron and bone. When morning breaks, he climbs back inside the silent, cold tank to sit with his fallen brothers. Suddenly, there's a knock on the hatch. Preparing for his final stand, Norman grabs a weapon and waits for the end. But as the hatch swings open, he doesn't see an enemy. He sees the faces of the American platoon. The soldiers are stunned to find a survivor amidst such total devastation. To them, he is a hero who performed a miracle by surviving an entire battalion. They call him a hero, but Norman's eyes are hollow, haunted by the brutal reality of the losses he's endured. This is the bitter truth of war. It demands total sacrifice. As the medics lead him away, Norman looks back one last time at Fury, standing as a silent monument to his friends. The screen fades to black as the journey ends. So, how did you like today's recap? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to our C Recap channel. See you in the next video. I'm leaving another incredible World War II movie recap on the end screen. Click it if you want to see more. Stay tuned.